This is Land of Havilah, Isaiah 23. This chapter is a prophecy of the destruction of Tyre, Tyre. We should preview some information that's relevant to this chapter. Tyre was a Phoenician coastal city 108 miles north of Jerusalem. They were known for shipping and trading. Tyre was on a small island in the Mediterranean, only about a half mile off the coast of what's now Lebanon. The wasting of it was 322 B.C. Alexander the Great built a causeway to it, which he used to lay siege, and ever since then Tyre's been connected to the mainland. Tyre conducted seagoing trade with places like Kittim, which is the nearby island that we know as Cyprus, and with far-off places like Tarshish. Tarshish was mind-bogglingly distant and exotic at the time. The location is unknown. Now concerning Tyre being laid waste according to the prophecy of this chapter, there were the Assyrians in Isaiah's time who never fully conquered it, then the Babylonians who besieged it for 13 long years, but since it was out there on an island, they were not able to conquer it. But in 322, as we said, about 400 years after Isaiah, Alexander the Great of the Macedonian Empire built the causeway and largely destroyed Tyre, so that's the fulfillment of this prophecy. And just to give a heads up as to where this is going, looking ahead to the next chapter, the prophecy of Tyre morphs into a prophecy of the whole earth being laid waste in end times. So what Alexander did to Tyre serves as a foreshadowing of what God will do to the earth. Yahweh, quote, makes the earth empty, makes it waste, turns it upside down, and scatters the inhabitants in the first verse of the next chapter. So why would God give a prophecy about Tyre, make that prophecy come to pass, then connect it to a prophecy of the entire earth? The answer is that the fulfillment of the first prophecy of Tyre will serve as a sign that the second prophecy of the earth is likewise reliable. The earth will be laid waste. So now chapter 23, verse 1. The burden of Tyre. How, you ships of Tarshish, for it's laid waste, so that there is no house, no entering in. From the land of Kittim it's revealed to them. Be still, you inhabitants of the coast, you whom the merchants of Sidon that pass over the sea have replenished. On great waters the seed of the Shihor, the harvest of the Nile, was her revenue. She was the market of nations. Be ashamed, Sidon, for the sea has spoken, the stronghold of the sea, saying, I've not travailed, nor given birth, neither have I nourished young men, nor brought up virgins. Comment in verse 1 is the burden of Tyre. Burden means bad news. Then how, you ships of Tarshish, for Tyre is laid waste. And on down through verse 3, there's the naming of some of Tyre's trading partners, Kittim, which is the island of Cyprus, Sidon, just north of Tyre, then Shihor and the Nile, which represent Egypt. Tyre traded with them all. She was the market of nations in verse 3. In verse 4, the sea has not given birth, meaning the sea has no children. The sea doesn't care about Tyre or anyone else. Let all the cities and nations be destroyed as far as the sea is concerned, because the sea has no children out there that she should care about anyone. Tyre might think she's the beloved daughter of the sea. Maybe she even worships the gods of the sea, but that would be a faulty idea. Coming up, the nations who trade with Tyre are hearing the news of her wasting. Verse 5. When the report comes to Egypt, then they will be in anguish at the report of Tyre. Pass over to Tarshish, wail, you inhabitants of the coast. Is this your joyous city whose antiquity is of ancient days, whose feet carried her far away to travel? Who has planned this against Tyre, the giver of crowns, whose merchants are princes, whose traders are the honorable of the earth? Yahweh of armies has planned it, to stain the pride of all glory, to bring into contempt all the honorable of the earth. Comment in verses 5 to 8, all the coastal cities and nations that traded with Tyre are aghast. They wail in verse 6. In verses 7 and 8, who would have thought this could happen since Tyre was so powerful, a maker of kings and merchants since ancient times? Who did this, they want to know. In verse 9, be advised it was Yahweh who did it. And why? Quote, to stain the pride of all glory, to bring into contempt all the honorable of the earth. End quote. In other words, it was a lesson to the earth that they should humble themselves before God. So Tyre is very much like Mystery Babylon in Revelation 18. Both were the centers of seagoing commerce, seemingly invincible. Then they were suddenly destroyed to the amazement of all. Then there was the wailing of kings and merchants. And coming later in the chapter, Tyre is a prostitute, same as Mystery Babylon. Both cities are a lesson that power, money, pride, and prestige, which are the general ways of the world, will fail spectacularly when God has the final say. Verse 10. Pass through your land like the Nile, daughter of Tarshish. There is no restraint any more. Comment, verse 10 is hard to interpret because there might have been a textual corruption, because one of the Dead Sea Scrolls has cultivate your land rather than pass through your land, NET translation notes. According to that reading, the people of Tyre should cultivate the land for a living because there's no more income by the sea. Verse 11. He has stretched out his hand over the sea. He has shaken the kingdoms. Yahweh has ordered the destruction of Canaan's strongholds. He said, You shall rejoice no more, you oppressed virgin daughter of Sidon. Arise, pass over to Kittim. Even there you will have no rest. Behold the land of the Chaldeans. This people was not. The Assyrians founded it for those who dwell in the wilderness. They set up their towers. They overthrew its palaces. They made it a ruin. Comment in verses 11 to 13, no one should be shocked that God laid Tyre to waste because God's done it before. He caused the rise and fall of many nations and kingdoms. After all, in verse 11, he's the God who stretches out his hand over the sea and does whatever he wants. He shakes kingdoms. He ordered the destruction of strong cities of Canaan by the Israelites. This is recorded in Joshua. And in verse 13, behold the land of the Chaldeans, which is the home of Babylon. Her people they weren't on the radar. Meanwhile, the Assyrians were founding their kingdom, which they raised up from the wilderness. They set up fortified towers in the cities they built. Then the Babylonians arose from nothing and overthrew all that. So what's so surprising that Tyre should be laid waste? In verse 12, quote, You shall rejoice no more, you oppressed virgin daughter of Sidon. Arise, pass over to Kittim, even there you will have no rest, end quote. According to secular history, the Assyrians conquered Sidon in 701 BC. This would account for the oppression of Sidon in verse 12. Then there's a very impressive detail of arising and passing over to Kittim. It turns out in secular history that Sidonian king Luli fled Sidon for Cyprus when the Assyrians invaded, Cyprus being Kittim, as verse 12 says, about 120 miles off the coast. So that would account for the comment in verse 12, Arise, pass over to Kittim, even there you will have no rest. Still regarding Tyre's destruction, then saying Tyre will be revived after 70 years, verse 14. Howl, you ships of Tarshish, for your stronghold is laid waste. It'll come to pass in that day that Tyre will be forgotten 70 years, according to the days of one king. After the end of 70 years, it'll be to Tyre like in the song of the prostitute. Take a harp, go about the city, you prostitute that's been forgotten. Make sweet melody, sing many songs, that you may be remembered. It will happen after the end of 70 years that Yahweh will visit Tyre, and she shall return to her wages, and will play the prostitute with all the kingdoms of the world on the surface of the earth. Her merchandise and her wages will be holiness to Yahweh. It will not be treasured nor laid up, for her merchandise will be for those who dwell before Yahweh, to eat sufficiently and for durable clothing. Comment in verses 14 and 15, Tyre will be laid waste and forgotten for 70 years, but she'll bounce back. The prostitute metaphor is that a prostitute has money on her mind and doesn't care how she makes it, which is the same as Tyre. The woeful song of the prostitute is that she's been put out of business and wants more than anything to get back in. In the same way, Tyre wants more than anything to revive commerce. In verse 17, Tyre will again play the prostitute with all the kingdoms. She'll get back into shipping. In verse 18, her merchandise and wages will be holiness to Yahweh, end quote. That doesn't mean that the revived Tyre has reformed, and it doesn't mean that God views her money as holy. It just means that God's keeping track of her merchandising and wages and is storing it all up for those who dwell before him. In verse 18, for his own. God keeps account of all the unrighteous wages in the earth and stores it up for the righteous. As verse 18 says, God's own will eat sufficiently and have durable clothing. Unlike the wicked, the wages of the righteous will endure. Quote, the sinner's wealth is stored up for the righteous, Proverbs 13:22. And, quote, to the sinner God gives the task of gathering and storing up wealth to hand it over to the one who pleases God, Ecclesiastes 2:26. Isaiah 24 is next, as this prophecy extends to the entire earth.